Hey everybody, and welcome back to DeHaven Family Farm. Today we're going to be doing some maintenance on our Kubota DMC8028T. This is roughly a 9.5 foot cut. T stands for tine conditioning, and we have to do some regular maintenance, greasing all the various grease points that are on the machine. They've labeled most of them. There are a few that are kind of hidden. There's another little one there that signifies that there's a bunch up there. There's not one of those stickers for every single grease fitting, but it points you in the right direction. But one thing, I've had this mower quite a few years now, and it's time to service gearboxes. So this is a swivel hitch, and there's actually two gearboxes here. There's one here and one here. So the drain is here. That is your fill port, or your checkpoint, and then your fill port is on top. So we've got to drain this one out, and then on the back here, same thing. Then there is a gearbox right here. It has a breather. That's actually the dipstick right there, and your fill point for this gearbox. I believe the drain for that is right there, if you can see it. So we're going to drain this one out too, and get this one checked, and then we'll have to see about the cutter bar oil as well. So stay tuned. If you're interested in one of these mowers, you'll get a little information today. All right, we got the first gearbox draining. I took the little breather from the top out, and that sped things along. The oil actually doesn't look bad, but it's 4 or 5 years old now, so I've checked it a few times along the way, but I figure it's time to go ahead and change it. So we'll let this one drain out, and then I will do this one. Okay, we got our drain plug back in. We got our check plug taken out, and of course our vent and fill area cap is out. I don't have a funnel big enough or small enough to fit in the little hole there, so we're just gonna have to do it like this. And basically there's no dipstick. It's just whenever it starts to run out of that hole, anytime you have a gearbox that doesn't have a dipstick, it has a check plug, always follow the instructions given. Most times, if not I think all the time, the gearbox needs to be level in order to get the proper amount in there. It did not say in this owner's manual how much it holds, so I just have to keep putting it in till it comes out. Based on what came out, I'm thinking it's going to take most of this container, so it just goes in real slow because the fill port is so small. Okay, there it comes, running out the hole. Guess I should have had a towel there ready to go. If I didn't mention it already, this is ADW90 it calls for, and it took 3/4 of the quart. I'm just going to tighten this back up, put the breather back in, and then fill the other gearbox. I won't bother boring you with showing you that because it's the same as what we just did. Okay, so now we're going to work on this gearbox here. This one has a dipstick and a vent all in one, and the drain plug is up in there, which is going to be a nightmare to not have the oil drain all over. I'm going to see if I can rig something up here. Well, I rigged something up. We're getting about half of it. The other half is going on the floor. That was about the best I could do. Okay, so we made a big mess here. I tried to clean it up best I could, got the plug back in, and now we're gonna work on putting some oil in here. As I said before, there's no capacity chart or anything in the manual, and this one has the dipstick. I know over a quart came out, so We can easily put a quart in, and then we'll just keep checking it with the dipstick till we get our right quantity. Okay, that's done. I got about a quart in there. With all the gearboxes that I've done today, you know, the amounts that I put in are approximate. You know, I did not sit and let every last little drip come out. You know, if a guy wanted to do this, he could drain them all and go to bed and come back the next day and they'd all finally be done. It's not the thickest gear oil out there, obviously, but it is fairly thick. So it would take hours if you wanted it to all dribble out. So it's possible that if you let any of these gearboxes run overnight and they completely run out, that you'll end up putting more than roughly the quart in. The second gearbox did take more than a quart. That was about a quart and a half. But again, those figures are approximate depending on how much you let out. So now we'll get on to some greasing. One other thing to mention on this dipstick, the manual says to go by the full oil mark that's on there, but that dipstick screws down in multiple times. It's not a pull in and out, and it does not say in the manual whether the dipstick should be screwed all the way in for the proper level or just set in there and pull it out. So I'm not sure. Mine might be a little over full. If that's the case, it'll come out the breather. But that's something else. Maybe on the newer models they changed that, but just be aware of that. I have no idea which level is correct. All right, there's a grease fitting kind of hidden in there. The lock and lube won't fit in there, so I have to use the regular grease gun. Now, I'm not going to sit here and go over every single grease fitting with you guys. A lot of them are obvious. Like I said, there'll be a yellow sticker and you'll be able to see them. But I do want to go over some of the quirky things about this. Here you'll see there's the yellow sticker in a hole. There are a couple of U-joints here. The top one has a grease fitting and the bottom one for some reason does not. Okay, so now we're going to drain the cutter bar oil. It's all the way on the right side up underneath. Hopefully, there we go. It says it holds almost 8 pints, which is about 4 quarts. So I'm going to go and loosen the fill plug, and hopefully that'll let some of the air flow through a little faster. Okay, so here is our fill plug. I took that out, and that's where we'll put our oil back in. It is still draining, so we'll give it a few more minutes yet. All right, we put our drain plug back in. We used a level to level the cutter bar both directions to make sure that it was level as per the instructions. And now we're going to put oil in. I ended up letting this sit for about an hour and a half, and it had actually finally stopped dripping. So I think the majority of the oil did actually leave the cutter bar. So it should take close to 4 quarts, 3.5, to fill it back up. There's no dipstick here, there's just a hole, and it tells you in the book to be 1/4 of an inch to 3/8 of an inch deep with your oil. So basically I am just going to shove a screwdriver down in there when I get close, and I will just measure the oil on the screwdriver because there's not room to put like a tape measure or anything in there. So that's what I'm gonna do. All right guys, so I think that wraps up the service on this mower. I finished greasing all the points. I used a screwdriver as a dipstick and just measured the oil that was on the bottom of it to finish filling the cutter bar up. I was pretty close on the amount. I think I got about 75% of the oil out. Hindsight, I would have drove this side up on a block of wood because the oil was running down that way, but I got most of it out. So just a couple other minor things to keep in mind. I did check tire pressure. One side was a little low. And just do a general overview walk around of your machine. Make sure there's no bolts missing, things looking loose. Check all your knives down below. Just make sure, you know, whatever your system is there, these have bolts and nuts. You know, I checked and make sure all the nuts look like they were threaded on the same thing, you know, your impellers. I have steel tine impellers. Just give everything a general once over and make sure everything looks good before you start for the season. And then the last thing before you take your mower, or well, after you take your mower out, excuse me, since we've done basically 4 gearboxes, 2 in the front, 1 there, and the cutter bar, after you run it a little bit, again, following your manual, you're going to want to recheck all those and make sure that you had the correct amounts in. I was kind of turning the cutter bar to try to make sure I work all the oil all the way across before I did my final check on it. But just double check those things on a major service like this. So anyway, hope this video was informative to some of you who may be looking at getting one of these or have one of these mowers. Mine's an earlier model, so they may have changed a few things along the way. If you have any questions, comments, leave them down below. Thanks for watching. Please don't forget to subscribe and the thumbs up button on your way out the door. And I hope to see you on the next video.